Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how the business sector primarily here, but I guess any employer, be it government or anyone else, how the employment or recruitment process, if you will, can objectively examine and understand, quantify, appreciate the applicant, what the applicant brings to the table. Now, there've been some sort of huge changes in the way skills and capacities, abilities, aptitudes, call it what you will, can be assessed. And there's a difference as well in the people doing the assessing. For example, it wasn't that long ago, say in my own experience, that the people who would be, say, interviewing me when I would go for an interview, the people who are interviewing me would be somewhat or relatively expert in the field that I was in. So that my direct boss, for example, would be expert in that field, or at least have a serious familiarity with it. So they could. We could talk together about what the issues, the challenges were. They could quickly understand what I knew. I could also work out sort of how expert they were or not, and this sort of thing. Now, sometimes you'd come across a guy who may be an expert manager, an allocator of time and resources. So they may not be expert in the field, but they knew how to gather experts around them to do the job. So now that's changed. There was the time when you would only be interviewed by someone who knew more than you did about the job or the position or the role. This is now the reverse. You're going to be interviewed by someone who knows nothing about the role, and you may not even meet anyone during the course of the interview process, given the matrix management nature of things today, or that's been around for a little while now. So the chances of talking to someone who's more expert than you in the entire interview process, certainly through HR, and HR takes now a huge role in things, it's likely to be either not at all or very slim. In fact, if you bump into someone that knows as much as you do, then it's more a surprise than anything else. So not only has the understanding of what constitutes talent, ability, and so on has changed, and how it's measured and understood, but also the people doing the interviewing have changed. And similarly with matrix management type roles, where you may have 10, 12, depending on how senior the role, you may have 20 peers, and the more qualified an applicant is, the more concerned the others will be over being shown up to be inadequate, and the more they'll want to have a veto right over this applicant getting the job, which is why the lower quality applicants inevitably will get the job in a matrix management type situation, particularly where HR is involved. So let's just have a little look at that. I was talking to a CEO a little while ago, and he was complaining that some of their recent hires at the company hadn't worked out, and had been a disappointment, in his view anyway, a disappointment. And so, and this was in like a lunch sort of semi-social setting, really. So he's jawboning me, and I was listening politely and smiling because I wanted him to talk, and so I thought, well, I better not say something too clever or criticize him, otherwise he might shut up. So I wanted him to keep going, and so and he did. But how would he solve it? So he was saying, well, that these people in various positions haven't worked out, fairly senior roles as I understand it. So instead of wanting 1 degree and a master's, he was going to insist that everyone had to have a PhD. That'd fix it. That'll fucking fix it. So he saw it as simply as a straightforward matter of, do you have another certificate? So I'll just demand another certificate. So 1 certificate's your degree, and so I've demanded a master's, 2 certificates. That hasn't worked out, so now I'm going to demand 3 certificates. And I'm sure if that doesn't work out, he'll demand 4 certificates and so on. So he's loading up in my view, the wrong side of the equation. He's not even looking at can somebody do the job. He's just and he's been appointed by the big investment firm that owns most of that business. So the investment firm's appointed really someone who's just running it by the numbers. You got to count how many widgets did you sell today, and how many hours of labour did it take you to sell that many widgets. It's straight by the numbers. The guy doesn't understand the business, doesn't understand business. He's got no concept really of how to run a business. He's been appointed by the big end of the financial big end of town just to sort of, I don't know, be a junior accountant really. That's and he's not even can't even do that. But he's in charge nonetheless. He has that responsibility. The boys downtown are leaning on him to get results, and so he's going about it in the only way he can. The only way he can comprehend it is to say, well, you have to have another bit of paper, then another, then another, then another. And I'm sure he would go to say, well, you have to have 50 PhDs, 100 PhD. The idea of can someone do the job is not material to him. It's does someone have the bits of paper? Did they do that same job for our nearest competitor down the road? And do those people like him or her? And so really there's an extremely narrow range of qualifications that are being looked at here. Did you do it for if the person did it 5 years previously, that doesn't count. Did you do it yesterday for our nearest competitor? Do you have a double PhD? So these are the sort of things. So I was talking to him about, after a while, I listened to this as well. Do you actually sit down and talk to people about what they know, what they can do, how they're going to solve problems, how they're going to deal with the issues that you believe are pressing, and so on. And he will, no, why would I do that? And then now there's a reason why he's not doing it, because he doesn't understand. He can't have that level of conversation. Whereas, 20 plus years ago, the sort of people that are in his role could have that level of conversation. Now they can't. So they're quite handicapped. They can only do, a straight match of, you hold the picture in one hand, do these two pictures match? They do, okay, got a match, bang. And that's really the process that the guys and others, so it's not unique to this guy, that's the measurement that they're applying. Very simple, but they're falling into a false logic, because a table has 4 legs. A cow has 4 legs, therefore a cow is a table, or a table is a cow. The logic is impeccable. You can't argue with that logic. Both have 4 legs, but the extrapolation of the logic, of course, is ridiculously flawed. And this is really the path that these guys are going down. And I think it's a Western world wide problem or challenge that's out there, and it's I think it's deeply affecting. The sort of people are getting hired and promoted and so on. And you can see it, I think, what it means is once you go down the path of race and gender quotas and transgender quotas and all this sort of stuff, it tends to just disappear into the ether, as it's not seen as a problem. It's seen as some sort of act of virtuous activist progress, fighting back against the man and all this sort of thing. But within the confines of a CEO and HR departments, all this sort of thing, who don't understand anyway what the qualifications, what's needed to do a particular job, then it kind of all just folds into one another. So that if you hire a black lesbian who has a certificate from some 4th tier college that they were gifted anyway, that they never did earn, maybe they never even turned up to class, for goodness sake, but they've got that certificate. And that certificate is determined, do they or do they not have certificate? Therefore, they know. Whether they do know or not is quite beside the point. So there's no effort made to determine if people actually know what they're doing or understand the job or the business or whatever. So it's back down to just straight the numbers, running a business by the numbers. It's hiring by the numbers. Have you got a PhD in such and such? You do? Right, that's it, It's also, I suppose, an element of ass covering where if the person doesn't work out. So, well, I had a PhD. It's not my fault. Gee whiz, But the conversation about, do you know what you're doing? Can you solve problems for this business? Can you add value to this business? Those conversations don't take place because there isn't the expertise in the business in the first place to have those sort of conversations. Now, I've noticed this around talking to people on why. There was one person that clearly wasn't going to work out. The very, very angry my minority female who was so jumpy and so chip on shoulder and so brittle and so on that they were never going to work out, nor were they qualified to do it. They'd been gifted a degree simply because they were black and female, and they'd been gifted a job in the government department because they were black and female. And even though they had on paper at least that they were qualified and so on, that they really had no qualifications because they didn't earn their high school diploma, they didn't earn their degree, and they didn't sit down at interview and convince a person that they were the best qualified. So we've got actually generations now, almost 2 generations in the workforce of people who've never had to sit down at an interview and prove that they were qualified and competent to do the job. So just on mathematical probability, some are competent, but it's by accident rather than design. And this, I think, is working its way as like a destructive plague through the Western commercial sector, destroying pretty much everything in its path. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.